and welcome to Tip of the Iceberg. I'm Johanna Laurie, and with me today is Jim Smart, my usual companion on this program, partner in crime and all.
Yes,
right? And so, not really, but so we were talking last time about January 6th, the events of the day that all hell broke loose in the Capitol, and we had some differences of opinions about what went on that day. And I think we still have some of those differences of opinion, because it really did depend on who you were watching, whether it was mainstream media, whether it was some other media, whether you were listening to people who'd been there in person. You know, there were just lots of opinions, and there was lots going on, quite obviously.
Right.
I mean, there were thousands of people, and there were people who came just to hear Trump, and there were other people who came, obviously, to do other things. So I think sorting that all out is going to take a while. And, of course, there's been lots of repercussions as a result of that. And I think that today we wanted to look at those repercussions, because next week, of course, we're going to have the new impeachment trial of ex-President Trump. And so I think we'll see. We'll talk about that perhaps next time and see how that goes. Yeah.
We also wanted to mention a big event that happened with our own TV station, in which several key members were removed by a Zoom meeting about 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And what came up both in the Sentinel and at our meeting was the fate, in a way, almost, of this program and this station. And we regard this station particularly valuable for Keene and its immediate area, and even beyond, if it were
if they can get that program,
possible,
sure, they can get the program.
Mainly because we are a voice that is different from the Sentinels, or can be, and more welcomely different, because the Sentinel has many good aspects. I don't deny that at all. Nonetheless, it does reflect the limitations, intellectual limitations, of the person who owns it.
I wouldn't say intellectual as much as opinions. The opinions.
The
opinions. The people who work for the Sentinel are opinions, intellectually definitely all there. But the question is really if there are certain subjects that they don't want
you to know about.
Or they feel have been solved. They feel have been resolved in some way, and we feel that that's not the case.
Not so.
Then there really needs to be discussion of that.
And it's even very hard to get a letter in sometimes if you are.
That's true.
If they think you're too far off.
Yes, or to have your letter, the head. This is something that's come up in my case and a lot of other people, that you make a title for your letter, and that title doesn't get in. They put a different title in, and it kind of just slightly changes the meaning of. And so I know that people who've written letters have said to me, well, maybe changing the meaning of what I'm saying steers people away from even reading my letter. So that happens too.
Although recently I got a better headline than I ever thought.
Well, that can happen too, that they find a title that you like.
But the thing is, we do need in this area a station like this.
We do.
And so...
we're so lucky to have it, really.
And so we are going to bring up today, I'm sure, as we often do, items that you will not hear or see about in the Sentinel. And so,
at least not the same way.
think these are important, and so we start talking about this.
Yes, we both read an article.
And so why don't you show everyone what the cartoon is and explain it?
Okay, in the Sunday paper, there was an article called "Appeasing Extremists Just Like the Saudi Leaders Do," and if you see here, there's a little. Kind of very ordinary-looking guy, if not strange-looking guy in blue, who is watering a pot, which is red. And this pot says MAGA on it. MAGA, of course, represents Make America Great Again, which is Trump's slogan. And out of this pot is coming a very strange-looking plant, which turns into a monster plant. And so I take this to mean, really, that because blue and red obviously represent Democrats and Republicans, that if Democrats, especially unnoticing Democrats, are not careful, they're going to water a plant which is going to produce. They're going to take care of something which is going to turn into a monster. And then if you read this article, in a way, this person is saying the same thing, really. And
the article then, according to her, right,
yes,
is saying that Democrats are getting into a track where they are creating a monster.
Yes, this is what she's...
But that's sort of true, too, isn't it?
Well, wait, let's get into that. Let's get into the article.
Okay, but anyhow, we said, also that I would maybe give my reservations about the article first, which are more historical, I think.
But first, let's say who this person is, because it's very important to know. Okay, the person writing the article is Stephanie Hartel. And Stephanie Hartel is a former CIA agent.
Yeah.
She left the CIA in 2015 after having been the chief of the Counterterrorism Technical Collection Initiative against Al-Qaeda and other Middle Eastern terrorist groups in 2003 and again in 2013. So this is somebody who's been on the ground working for the CIA in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And then she says things about the Middle East that both Jim and I disagree with, and I'm going to let Jim say.
I'm shocked. I'm almost tempted to write to the CIA and say, is this an informed agent or not?
Well, however, but remember, you have to remember, because you've read a great deal about CIA. The CIA never claims to say the truth, do they?
Their motto is, the truth shall set you free.
Is that their motto?
Yes. I
see. Well, because they
it's
certainly don't act that way.
In our church.
Oh, but they I thought that there's yet another motto, and I have to look this up, because the CIA has been the author of dirty tricks since it was invented.
I'm not sure whether it's their motto.
Yeah.
But it is written on their building in Washington.
I see. Well.
I forget, from St. John's. The truth shall set you free.
If they only ever really practiced that.
Yeah,
it seems to me that for years, ever since their inception, they have not been practicing that.
No, they have an agenda, yeah.
But
anyhow, just to mention a couple obvious errors, she says was born the Saudi leaders.
The kingdom.
The kingdom.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Was born in 1901. Yeah.
It was born in 1901, Saudi Arabia, and that is come way off. It was born. It was recognized and established as a country in 1934, and she says also that for hundreds of years it has been a terrorist country.
No.
Well, and that's also completely false. It was a very moderate country under the old established line of kings who claimed
the kings of Saudi Arabia,
kings claiming
descent from the prophet,
a blood relationship to the prophet, and many others who did too. But anyhow.
Yeah.
Probably all legitimate.
Right.
But
a lot of offspring.
Anyhow, so it was a very modern or flexible kind of Islam that existed in Arabia until the Saudis came, and King Saud was a militant for Wahhabism, or a very strict kind of Islam. And so when he established control over nearly all of Arabia, then it became known as Saudi Arabia. And that's why we still call it Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
It's because it is a different kind of Arabia than what had existed. Most of its, practically all its existence.
Yes.
And that a CIA agent wouldn't know that.
Right, wouldn't know that history.
Yeah, it's just sort of a shocker.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
Well, but the question is whether she knows it or whether she's trying to put it in this perspective in order to present her case. You see,
Yeah.
she's using this to build up a case.
Right, but
Yes.
it seems
So-
to me she just doesn't know it. But
Well,
anyhow,
anyway.
regardless,
Yeah, yeah.
that's mine now. So you have,
So anyway, that said, she goes on to say something which I believe nobody can really dispute, which is that the Saudi rulers are transactional. You know, she says that when she talks about the killing of the journalist, and she talks about a lot of the fact that they deal with these terrorists every day, and that the wheelings and dealings that they do with other countries, they are.
They
yeah.
hang people in the
They
square.
hang people in the square and all this, yes.
Yeah.
And he says they do this to stay in power. She says the family holds power, mostly unmolested, in exchange for endorsing Wahhabi religious extremism and its violent enforcement of the same. I would add here, and it's important, I think, to add this because of what she says later, not only do they endorse it, but they hire out the extremists. What we have seen since 9/11, and it's clear that 9/11 was part of that, is that the Saudis are perfectly happy to rent their extremists out. They're kind of a rent extremist country to whoever needs them in order, and Osama bin Laden was part of that. I mean, he was somebody who went to other countries making trouble.
Do you know that for sure?
Well, sure. Think about Afghanistan and think about the places where Saudi and actually back even in 79, when the Russians were in Afghanistan, the Saudis were sending extremists at along with our blessing, to make trouble for the Russians, so that the Russians would get out of there. I mean, the Saudis all along, ever since they have been in power, have used these extremists. They haven't just made a deal with them at home. They've actually used them abroad.
But I always heard that bin Laden was sort of persona non grata in his own family. I mean, he's out of step with most of the family members.
Yeah, because he's because he never
just because
of who he
is a revolutionary.
He's a revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't want to stay at home and toe the line. He wanted to go
everywhere
and be exciting.
Yeah.
Yes, but think about 9/11. Those of us who really studied 9/11 know that those extremists who came to this country were actually the Saudis knew all about them. The Saudis provided them to whoever it was. We don't yet know whether it was Mossad and the CIA who set up the 9/11, but whoever set up the CIA needed
was
extremists.
over there, and all the Saudi operatives came through Jeddah, where and our State Department gave approval to them.
Right, getting passports.
We never mentioned that.
Right, we getting passports. They came here. They all these things that they did, and then a lot of them went home. Some of them died. Most of them went home and disappeared into into wherever they came from. So this idea. So anyway, then she says she was struck how the insurrectionists on what she calls the insurrectionists on January 6th employed the same tactics, and she talks about how the extremists in all countries know how to use these tactics, and they do. Everybody knows how to use the internet now. But she goes on then to say that to compare the people, she talks about the foreign extremists and how they can, in their own countries, they can draw on thousands of followers who are unemployed, disenfranchised, hurting economically. And then she says, this is what Trump did in America. Now, this is where I begin to really take issue with her, because Trump in America has appealed primarily to middle-class, ordinary people who simply feel left out of the political paradigm. They feel like they've been abandoned by the Republicans, they've been abandoned by the Democrats. When Trump came along, they said, wow, here's somebody who speaks our language, who understands us, who wants the things we want. And this was middle Americans. This was our relatives. This was everybody who wasn't a Democrat almost.
Yeah. But don't you think he appealed also to not middle class, but to lower class too?
Lower class. Well, lower class. Do we have a lower class in this country? We have some very poor people. We don't have the class system that other countries have. America is powerful because
you would say,
the strength of our middle class.
Couldn't you say it would be the Yahoo group?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
I think I would.
No. Well, maybe that's because of watching mainstream media, and they're telling you who these people are.
Yeah.
But if you know them, if you have talked to them, if you even look without listening, sometimes I don't have a TV, but when I go to the dentist, the voice is turned off, and I can sit and watch mainstream TV and see what's happening without all the blat, without them telling me, trying to persuade me what's going on. And when I see that, I can see exactly that these are ordinary people just like you and me. These are not different from you and me. This is you and me with a different attitude, basically, with a different perspective on things. And that's what I was trying to say last time. So the idea that, and I think you'd agree too, that the idea that somehow Trump was able to whip up all these people and that they're all extremists, the way that she's talking about the people who were behind bin Laden, or the people, and even that, I think they're smaller numbers than people say. But what I'm saying is that I feel that this is a faulty comparison. I feel the idea of comparing January 6th to anything that's happened in the Middle East, you'd have to compare it more to the Arab Spring, where ordinary middle-class people thought they had some leaders who could lead them out of economic misery, and then the people, the military and people who'd been there before just stepped in, arrested those people, threw them in jail, and killed a bunch of them. That was more like what has happened under Trump, because people now what's happening is that people are standing up and saying, get rid of the Republican Party. Let's put Republicans out of anyway. We can go into that, but let's stick with our article here. So here she says, let's see, and what would you have to say about this? So she says, former President Donald Trump, his loyalists in Congress, and their adherents have much more in common with Middle Eastern terrorists than just internet manipulation. They all target certain groups for support: the disenfranchised, the jobless, the unbendingly religiously fervent. Now, unbendingly religiously fervent, we have lots of religious people in this country. They're on both sides of the political spectrum. They're not unbending, most of them.
But I would say most of them supported Trump.
I don't know.
That's common. Everyone agrees with that, I think.
Perhaps.
Yeah, their spokesman even came on TV saying so. They say, we don't agree with his personal.
But we support his agenda.
But we supported him.
But that's
also,
because
I do think that Trump did elicit a sort of a hardcore or a core of some sort in society that has been aroused, that was not aroused before, and I don't think it's going to go away either.
Well,
and it's not, and it is a very fundamentalist kind of mentality, sort of America right, regardless, and super patriotic, and and basically ignorant of world affairs.
Well, I think I agree with some of that, but my feeling is that of that group, there are relatively few extremists. That we have few extremists in this country as compared to other places, because on the whole, we're the richest country in the world. Generally, people have done well here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is changing right now.
And can do if they want to.
And if they want to, exactly. Yeah. So, what you have for extremists in this country is really a fringe movement, whether it's on the right or the left.
Real.
And what I've seen.
Now, would you call QAnon extremists?
Yeah, I'm not even sure, but what they're not some kind of a CIA plant. To tell you the truth, I've heard people say, I haven't looked into QAnon all that much, but to me it kind of relates to what this woman is doing here. CIA has been into propaganda from the get-go. They're masters at it, and they know how to and the FBI too. They've trained the FBI, who used to be just our Federal Bureau of Investigation, and by now it's the FBI has the same tactics. And what the FBI's done now for years is actually train terrorists in this country. Train them.
They train.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
They trained the guy. They trained the guy.
They train.
Who did the first World Trade Center bombing?
For sure, they train enablers.
Enablers, exactly.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
So
I don't know whether if they actually do actual.
They did
stuff.
The first
but
World
I
Trade.
do know.
Yeah.
There's.
Yeah.
Obvious instances where enablers have been.
Exactly, and they've been doing that for a long time. But the thing is, the first World Trade Center bombing is one example. They actually set up the guy who planted the bombs, and this is common knowledge now. You can read about this, and they were involved in the Oklahoma City bombing. You know, they've been behind a number of the of the great, terrorist events that have happened in recent years. So the idea that they're not behind what went on January 6th, I leave that, I leave that for history to come up with, because it seems to me it's very likely that whoever was doing the so-called terrorism activities had funding, they were allowed to come in there, the police stood back,
but the thing is,
and somebody was instigating.
The thing is, difference is Trump was in tune with these people. He had.
I don't know. I think it's unfair.
He was in tune with them. See, that's what's different.
Well,
that's why I think he should be impeached.
Yeah. What do you mean by in tune? Yeah. What do you mean by in tune?
Because he appealed to them. He said the things they wanted to hear.
Well, okay, but that doesn't mean saying. But that's different from saying he's in tune in the sense of
a leader can pull that out of society if he's clever enough.
Yeah.
And Trump is and was.
Okay, well, this is let's go into this when we talk about what's going to happen with the whole impeachment thing. But let's stick with her for a moment, because I would like to get at what she's trying to do here. So she's saying that these groups, that we have all these disenfranchised groups, and they're just like Saudi Arabia. Untrue, totally untrue. So, and then she talks about the protest. And then she talks about, let's see. So she says, after decades, I love this one, after decades of sacrifice by the U.S. military, law enforcement, and intelligence officers working to fight terrorism, too many of them living and dying far from home, Trump brazenly built his own extremist faction and excited them to conduct terrorism in America. So what she's saying, what she's saying is that the CIA, the glorious CIA has been trying to save us from terrorism, when we know darn well it's been inciting terrorism all over the world, and even at 9/11.
Yeah.
So they're the good guys. Trump is the bad guy, and Trump, he built his own extremist faction. Well, whether or not he did, I personally don't think he did. I think I think there's just lots more going on than that. But anyway, if you look at then having claimed that, having claimed that Trump is responsible for all the extremism, which, as I say, was a really open question, whether he is or isn't, then she says, homegrown terrorism fostered by political leaders is more horrific and longer lasting than all the terrorism that's been going on in the Middle East. I certainly don't agree with that. Do you agree with that? That what happened on January 6th compares to that?
I do think Trump has elicited a core that isn't going to die.
Well, I think
it's going to continue. He's going to continue to be the spokesman for it. I mean, I don't think just because Trump is out doesn't mean Trumpism isn't still here.
No, that's true. But that's true. That Trumpism, what it represents and who's going to adhere to it is another thing. Let's just finish up with her, and then we can go on to this. It seems to me, then she says that not only is Trump then responsible for everything that happened on January 6th, I mean, I think that you can certainly take issue with that, that they were taking orders basically from him, and they have nothing to do with it. It's all his fault. But then she says, the same goes this month for Republican leaders who are either equivocating or continuing to pander to the American extremists they use as a political base. Trumpists are playing with dark forces they do not fully understand or control.
That might be true.
Well, I take issue with that in part, and I'll tell you that. At the Capitol, we saw a preview of what could come if the GOP doesn't renounce the very American extremists that Trump enabled.
Now,
They did. They renounced them. But what she wants them to renounce is all Trump supporters. All Trump supporters are extremists. They have to be renounced.
Right.
And then so what she's basically saying is that, and then she says, January 6th, she finally says, January 6th was not quite 9/11. No, lady, it wasn't 9/11. Thankfully, far fewer people died. The attack on the Capitol was more chilling, though, she says, because American extremists were behind the deaths. And then she says, two more, okay, there's more coming if American politicians cling to the single goal of climbing into bed with anyone to remain in power. That's the most honest statement she's made here, but it doesn't just relate to Trump and his followers. This relates to every single person, and especially our elected Democrats and Republicans in Congress who've been in bed with the wrong people for years.
Yeah.
And this is where I think the discussion of who's to blame for this, what happened on
the other
January
thing,
6th.
the other similarity to 9/11, however, is that obviously this didn't happen just automatically on January 6th.
Obviously.
Because
right.
all those people
Yes.
with the equipment,
Yes.
they didn't,
Yes.
that isn't accidental.
No.
They had the
No.
things to break the glass.
Somebody gave it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody set them up.
And they had to
Right.
plan
And the
on
question
it.
is,
So,
who set them up? And
yeah.
that we don't know. And everybody's saying, well, it was Trump, and they just set themselves up, but they were all fired up to go. I mean, people were still listening to Trump talking while
But-
those guys did it. He was still talking to people who were perfectly peaceful when the
but
terrorists
I mean,
broke into
he
the.
was sort
yeah.
of in tune with them.
He was
though,
saying.
anyhow.
Anyway.
So I
yeah,
think,
okay.
well, I think we're about at an end
For
of
today.
our time, anyhow, if not of our discussion.
Yeah.
So please join us again. And you can see us on channel 1302, 1301, I keep forgetting, 1302 at Thursday at 6 and Friday at 8:30 in the morning and Saturday at 2:30 in the afternoon and Sunday at 6 p.m. And until then, we will see you the next time. Goodbye.